The massive dome of the Galactic Council chamber stretched high above the assembled delegates. Thousands of alien beings filled the curved seats that circled the central speaking platform. The air buzzed with translation devices working overtime to convert hundreds of different languages into something each species could understand. Ambassador Karen Wright sat alone in the human section. Her dark blue uniform looked plain compared to the colorful robes and exotic armor worn by the other delegates. She kept her hands folded in her lap and her face calm, even though her heart was beating fast. Today would not be a good day for humanity. The Zephyrian Chancellor rose from his golden throne. His tall, thin body moved like a snake as he walked to the center platform, his forearms spread wide as he began to speak. His voice echoed through the chamber's sound system. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," he said, his words dripping with false kindness. "We gather today to address a growing problem, a threat to our peaceful way of life. The species known as humans have shown time and again that they cannot follow the rules that keep our galaxy safe." Karen felt her jaw tighten, but she did not move. She had expected this. Earth's intelligence services had warned her that something like this was coming. The Chancellor continued. "These humans refuse to pay the protection fees that keep trade routes safe. They fight back when our security forces try to maintain order. They ignore the boundaries we have set to protect dangerous regions of space. Worst of all, they encourage other species to act just like them." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Karen noticed that not all the delegates seemed happy about this meeting. Some of the smaller species looked worried. A few even glanced at her with what might have been sympathy. The Altarian ambassador stood next. His blue skin glowed slightly under the chamber's lights. "The humans are too violent," he declared. "When pirates attacked their colony on Kepler 7, they did not negotiate. They did not pay tribute. They fought back and destroyed 3 entire pirate fleets. This kind of behavior makes everyone else look bad." Karen almost smiled at that. The Altarians had been the ones secretly funding those same pirate fleets. Earth spies had proof, but she would save that information for later. A Vorthan delegate clicked her insect-like mandibles together. "Humans refuse to follow proper diplomatic procedures. When we told them to abandon their mining operations in the neutral zone, they asked for proof that the zone belonged to anyone. They demanded to see legal documents. They questioned our authority." More alien voices joined in. Each one had a complaint about humanity. They were too curious. They asked too many questions. They treated other species as equals instead of showing proper respect to their betters. They shared technology freely instead of using it as a tool for control. Karen listened to it all. Every accusation was really a compliment in disguise. Humans fought back against bullies. They asked questions when things did not make sense. They treated others fairly. They shared knowledge to help everyone. These were good things, but the Galactic Council saw them as threats. Finally, the Chancellor raised all 4 of his arms for silence. "The time has come for action," he announced. "Humanity must learn to follow the rules or face the consequences." He pulled out a data pad and began to read. "By order of the Galactic Council, humanity is given 30 standard days to comply with the following demands. First, all human military forces must be reduced by 75%. Second, all human colonies must pay the standard protection fees to authorized security providers. Third, all human exploration beyond approved sectors must stop immediately. Fourth, all human trade agreements with non-approved species must be terminated." Karen felt a chill run down her spine. These demands would destroy human independence completely. The Chancellor was not finished. "If humanity fails to comply with these reasonable requests, they will face complete isolation. No trade agreements, no technology sharing, no diplomatic relations, no access to galactic communication networks. Humanity will be cut off from civilized society until they learn to behave properly." The chamber erupted in cheers from most of the delegates. A few remained silent. Karen noticed that the species cheering the loudest were the ones who had been trying to control human activities for years. When the noise died down, the Chancellor looked directly at Karen. "Ambassador Wright, you may respond on behalf of your species." Karen stood slowly. She walked to the center platform with steady steps. The chamber fell silent as every eye and sensor focused on her. She looked around at the assembled aliens, taking her time to meet as many gazes as she could. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "I have listened carefully to your concerns about humanity's behavior. I have heard your demands. I understand your position perfectly." She paused, letting the silence stretch. Some delegates leaned forward, expecting her to beg for mercy or promise to change. "I will take your message back to Earth immediately," Karen continued. "Our government will consider your proposal very carefully. We will discuss every point you have raised. We will examine every demand you have made." The Chancellor looked pleased. He had expected the humans to cave in quickly. Karen smiled slightly. "We will give you our answer within the time limit you have set. I promise you that our response will be clear and final. There will be no confusion about where humanity stands." She turned and walked back to her seat without waiting for permission. The Chancellor looked puzzled by her calm reaction, but he quickly moved on to other business. As the session continued, Karen quietly activated her personal communicator. She sent a coded message to Captain Jake Morrison, commander of the Earth Defense Fleet. The message was short and simple. "They want us to kneel. Time to show them what humans do when cornered." The session ended 2 hours later. As delegates began filing out of the chamber, several alien ambassadors approached Karen. Some offered sympathy. Others hinted that their species might be willing to work with humanity privately. A few even warned her that the Council's demands were just the beginning. Karen thanked them all politely, but her mind was already focused on the trip home. Earth needed to know what had happened here. More importantly, Earth needed to decide how to respond. As her ship left the Nexus Prime system, Karen looked back at the massive space station that housed the Galactic Council. She wondered if she would ever see it again. More importantly, she wondered if it would still exist in its current form once humanity finished responding to the Council's ultimatum. The galaxy had made its choice. Soon, humanity would make theirs. The emergency meeting room deep inside the White House was packed with the most important people in Earth's government. President Lisa Harper sat at the head of the long table, her fingers drumming quietly on the polished wood surface. She had called this meeting within hours of receiving Ambassador Wright's report from the Galactic Council. Defense Secretary Ryan Torres stood at the front of the room, pointing to a holographic display that showed the galaxy's political map. Red dots marked hostile alien territories. Yellow dots showed neutral zones. Green dots indicated friendly species. The pattern was clear to everyone in the room. "The Galactic Council's ultimatum is not about peace," Torres said, his voice filled with controlled anger. "Our intelligence shows that 6 major alien species have been planning this for over 2 years. They want to break human independence before we become too strong to control." Dr. Amanda Foster, head of the Xenobiology Institute, nodded in agreement. She activated her own data pad and shared files with everyone in the room. "The species demanding we pay protection fees are the same ones secretly controlling the pirate fleets attacking our colonies. They create the problem, then offer to solve it for a price." President Harper looked up from her notes. "Explain that again, Doctor. Make sure I understand this correctly." "It is simple extortion, Madam President," Foster replied. "The Zephyrians fund pirate attacks on human settlements. Then they offer to make the attack stop if we pay them tribute. When we refuse and fight back instead, they claim we are being too violent." General Chris Parker of Space Command leaned forward in his chair. "It gets worse than that. Our deep space reconnaissance teams have discovered slave labor camps in 17 different systems. The galaxy's so-called peaceful species maintain their economies by forcing weaker races to work for nothing. We accidentally disrupted this system by offering fair wages to alien workers." The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. They had known the galaxy was not as peaceful as it claimed, but the extent of the corruption was shocking. Torres brought up another display. "The Altarians are particularly clever. They maintain 12 different shell companies that control shipping routes. Any species that tries to trade independently gets labeled as rebels and attacked by authorized Security forces. We threatened their monopoly simply by offering better deals. President Harper rubbed her temples. The headache she had been fighting all day was getting worse. So we have two choices: submit to their demands and become part of their corrupt system, or fight a war against most of the galaxy. Actually, Madam President, General Parker said quietly, I believe we have a third option. Everyone turned to look at him. Parker was known for his creative thinking, but he had been unusually quiet during the meeting. We leave, he said simply. The room erupted in confused voices. Secretary Torres was the first to speak clearly. Leave? Leave where? This is our galaxy too. Parker stood and walked to the holographic display. He manipulated the controls to show a different view of local space. We withdraw completely from galactic politics. We recall all our diplomats, traders, and non-essential personnel from alien worlds. We pull back our military forces to defend only human territories. We stop participating in their system entirely. Dr. Foster looked puzzled. But that would be exactly what they want. They would have gotten rid of us without a fight, would they? Parker asked with a slight smile. Let me show you something our economic analysis team discovered. He brought up a series of charts and graphs. The data was complex, but the implications were clear. Human colonies produced 60% of the food consumed in the Outer Rim territories. Human medical technology was the only treatment for 3 major diseases, affecting 17 different species. Human security forces were stationed along 42% of the major trade routes. The galaxy does not just want to control us, Parker explained. They need us. They have become dependent on human capabilities without realizing it. If we withdraw completely, their entire system will collapse. President Harper studied the data carefully. The numbers were impressive. Humanity had become essential to galactic civilization in less than 50 years of contact. But would not withdrawing hurt us as well? She asked. Parker shook his head. Human colonies are almost completely self-sufficient. We developed that way because we knew we could not depend on alien support. Most of our trade with alien species involves us selling essential goods to them. They buy our food, our medicine, and our protection. What do they sell us? Luxury items and raw materials we can get elsewhere. Secretary Torres was beginning to understand. You are suggesting we call their bluff. Let them have their galaxy, without human interference, and see how long they can maintain their precious peace. Exactly, Parker replied. We do not fight them. We do not negotiate with them. We simply leave them alone to deal with the problems they have been using us to solve. Dr. Foster pulled up her own data files. This could actually work. The Marauder clans have been held in check by our patrol fleets for years. The Galactic Council takes credit for maintaining security, but it is really human forces doing the work. Remove us, and those clans will be free to attack core worlds. President Harper looked around the table at her advisors. Each one was nodding slowly as they understood the implications of Parker's proposal. How long would it take to organize a complete withdrawal? She asked. 6 months for a full recall of all personnel, Torres answered. 3 months if we focus on essential evacuations first. What about our colonies in disputed territories? Relocate them to systems under clear human control, Parker said. It will be expensive, but we can do it. President Harper sat back in her chair and closed her eyes. The decision would affect every human in the galaxy. It would also send a message that would be heard across all civilized space. Gentlemen, Dr. Foster, she said finally, I want detailed plans for a complete withdrawal from galactic society on my desk within 72 hours. We are going to give the Galactic Council exactly what they asked for. We are going home. The meeting continued for 3 more hours as they worked out the basic details of the largest logistical operation in human history. When it was finished, President Harper authorized the first phase of Operation Exodus. The galaxy wanted humanity to learn its place. Soon, the galaxy would learn what that place really was. Captain Nicole Reed watched the massive cargo ships loading supplies at the new Shanghai orbital station. Her job was to coordinate the evacuation of 17 human colonies from the disputed border zones. It was the largest peacetime movement of people in human history, but she had to make it look routine. Status report. she said into her headset. Commander Paul Davis responded from the Merchant Fleet Coordination Center. 67 cargo vessels ready for departure. Colony transport. Alpha 7 reports all civilians aboard. We are running ahead of schedule. Reed nodded with satisfaction. The operation was going smoothly, but they had to be careful. Any sign of panic or rushed evacuation might tip off the alien observers watching human activities. On her main screen, she could see the news feeds from various alien networks. The galactic media was celebrating what they saw as humanity's surrender. Headlines across the galaxy declared victory for the Galactic Council. Humans accept demands scrolled across. Zephyrian news services. Violent species finally controlled, announced the Altarian Broadcasting Network. If only they knew what was really happening. Reed switched to the secure military channel. Admiral Bennett, this is Captain Reed. Colony evacuation proceeding as planned. No interference from alien forces. Admiral Bennett's voice crackled through the speakers. Good work, Captain. Remember, we are not retreating. We are repositioning. Make sure all personnel understand the difference. The distinction was important for morale. Human forces were not running away in fear. They were making a strategic withdrawal that would soon teach the galaxy an important lesson. Reed looked at her tactical display showing the positions of human ships throughout local space. The pattern looked chaotic to casual observers, but it was actually carefully planned. Every human vessel was moving toward predetermined positions that would allow for rapid evacuation if needed. Captain, her communications officer called out, we are receiving a transmission from the Kepler 7 colony. Governor Martinez wants to speak with you directly. Reed activated the secure channel. Governor Martinez appeared on her screen, his weathered face showing the stress of managing a colony under pressure. Captain Reed, he said, my people are asking questions. They want to know why we are abandoning colonies we spent years building. Some are refusing to leave. Reed had expected this. Moving entire populations was never easy, especially when those people had invested their lives in building new homes. Governor, she replied, tell your people this is temporary. We are not abandoning anything permanently. We are making a tactical withdrawal that will benefit humanity in the long run. But what about our farms, our factories, our homes? Pack everything valuable that can be moved. Destroy everything else that might be useful to the aliens. When we return, we will rebuild better than before. Martinez nodded slowly. He had been a military officer before becoming a colonial governor. He understood the logic, even if he did not like it. While Reed coordinated the colony evacuations, Ambassador Helen Price was preparing for her final appearance before the Galactic Council. She had requested one last session to deliver humanity's formal response to the ultimatum. The council chamber was packed again, but the mood was different this time. Most delegates seemed relaxed and confident. They believed they had successfully intimidated the troublesome humans into submission. The Zephyrian Chancellor welcomed Price with false warmth. Ambassador Price, we are pleased to see you return so quickly. I trust humanity has decided to accept our reasonable requests. Price walked to the center platform with steady steps. She carried a single data pad containing her government's official response. The chamber fell silent as she prepared to speak. Honored delegates, she began, I bring you the official response of the United Earth government to your ultimatum. She paused and looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. After careful consideration of your demands, Earth has decided to comply completely with your wishes. You have made it clear that human participation in galactic society is unwelcome. You have stated that our methods and values are incompatible with your peaceful civilization. You have demanded that we change our fundamental nature or face isolation. The Chancellor smiled broadly. Victory was within his grasp. Price continued, therefore, Earth has decided to remove the source of your concerns permanently. We are withdrawing all human presence from contested territories. We are recalling all human diplomatic personnel. We are terminating all military agreements and security arrangements. We are ending all trade relationships with species that find our business practices objectionable. The smile began to fade from the Chancellor's face. This was not the submission he had expected. Furthermore, Price said, her voice growing stronger, we are closing all human colonies in the disputed border regions. We are pulling back our patrol fleets from the Outer Rim territories. We are ending our participation in galactic communication networks and joint scientific projects. Murmurs of confusion began spreading through the chamber. Some delegates were starting to realize what Price was actually saying. In short, Price concluded, we are giving you exactly what you asked for. A galaxy without human interference. A civilization free from human values and human methods. You will no longer need to worry about our disruptive presence because we will no longer be present. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Several delegates jumped to their feet, demanding explanations. The Chancellor pounded his ceremonial staff for order. You cannot simply leave, he shouted. There are agreements. There are responsibilities. Price smiled calmly. With respect, Chancellor, those agreements were made with willing partners. You have made it clear that humanity is not welcome as an equal member of galactic society. We are simply accepting your decision and acting accordingly. She activated her datapad and transmitted humanity's formal withdrawal notice to every delegate simultaneously. Effective immediately, all human military forces are withdrawn from joint operations. All human merchants are recalled from alien territories. All human diplomatic missions are terminated. All human aid programs are ended. All human scientific cooperation is suspended. The Altarian ambassador stood up, his blue skin turning pale. But who will patrol the shipping lanes? Who will guard against the Marauder clans? I am sure you will find a solution, Price replied politely. After all, you managed perfectly well before humans arrived in this galaxy. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her final words echoed through the stunned chamber. Thank you for your hospitality during our brief participation in galactic civilization. We wish you success in maintaining the peace without our disruptive influence. Goodbye. As Price left the chamber, emergency sessions began forming throughout the building. For the first time in decades, the Galactic Council was faced with solving problems instead of just creating them. In space above the station, the last human diplomatic ship powered up its engines and set course for the Sol system. The exodus had begun. 6 months had passed since the last human ship left Nexus Prime. Admiral Tony Mitchell sat in his command chair aboard the Deep Space Monitoring Station hidden in the asteroid belt beyond Pluto. His job was to watch and listen to what was happening in the galaxy that had rejected humanity. The news was not good for the aliens. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake called from her communications station. We are receiving another distress call from the Vegan system. The Marauder clans have attacked 3 more colonies this week. Mitchell nodded grimly. The Marauder clans had been quiet for years while human patrol fleets kept them in check. Now, with human forces withdrawn, the clans were making up for lost time. They were hitting targets throughout the Outer Rim territories with increasing boldness. Any response from the Galactic Council? Mitchell asked. The Zephyrian Chancellor issued a statement calling for calm and promising that authorized security forces would handle the situation, Blake replied. That was 2 weeks ago. No security forces have been deployed. Mitchell was not surprised. The authorized security forces were mostly for show. They looked impressive at parades and diplomatic functions, but they had never faced real combat. The dirty work of actually fighting pirates and raiders had been left to human forces for decades. What else are we seeing? Blake pulled up a summary report on her screen. 17 agricultural worlds are reporting food shortages. The Kepler plague has spread to 9 more systems without human medical supplies to contain it. Trade volume is down 60% across all major shipping routes. The dire communications board lit up with another incoming transmission. Blake listened through her headset, then looked up with surprise. Sir, we are receiving a direct communication from Chancellor Korvax of the Zephyrian Council. He is requesting permission to speak with Earth leadership. Mitchell raised an eyebrow. Korvax? The same Chancellor who led the campaign against humanity? Yes. Sir, the transmission is marked as urgent and is being sent through diplomatic channels. Route it to Earth immediately. President Harper will want to hear this herself. While Blake transmitted the message to Earth, Mitchell turned his attention to other reports coming in from across the galaxy. The pattern was clear and accelerating. Every system that had depended on human services was facing crisis. The Altarian Empire was perhaps suffering the worst. Their entire economy had been built on controlling trade routes that human forces had kept safe. With human patrols gone, the Marauder clans were attacking Altarian merchant ships almost daily. The proud empire that had demanded human withdrawal was now losing money faster than they could print it. "Admiral," Blake said, "we are getting reports of civil unrest on 12 different worlds. The species that supported the ultimatum are being blamed for the current crisis." Mitchell pulled up the detailed reports. On Centauri Prime, angry crowds were demanding that their government negotiate with Earth for the return of human medical aid. The Centaurians had been treating a genetic disorder with human-developed medicines for over a decade. Without those medicines, thousands were dying. On Vorthon, the insect-like species that had complained about human questioning of authority were now begging human companies to resume their mining operations. It turned out that human mining techniques were not just more efficient, they were also less damaging to the environment. The Vorthon attempts to replace human miners had resulted in ecological disasters on 3 different worlds. "Sir," Blake interrupted his reading, "we have an urgent transmission from the Tau Ceti system. Governor Jackson of New Melbourne Colony is reporting that alien ships are approaching their system without authorization." Mitchell sat up straight. New Melbourne was one of the human colonies that had been relocated during the withdrawal. If aliens were approaching without permission, it could mean trouble. "Get me Governor Jackson immediately." The transmission took several minutes to connect across the vast distances of space. When Governor Jackson's image appeared on the screen, he looked stressed but determined. "Admiral Mitchell, we have a situation here. 5 ships flying Zephyrian flags have entered our system. They are requesting permission to land and speak with our leadership. They claim to be carrying humanitarian supplies." Mitchell frowned. "Humanitarian supplies? For humans?" "That is what they claim, sir, but our sensors show their cargo holds are nearly empty. I think they are here to negotiate, not to deliver aid." "Have they made any demands?" "Not yet. They are just asking for permission to approach the planet. My security chief thinks it might be a trap, but I am not sure. These ships do not look military." Mitchell made a quick decision. "Governor, grant them permission to approach, but keep your defenses ready. Have them land at the main spaceport where you can control the situation. I want a full recording of any conversations they have with your people." "Understood, Admiral. I will keep you informed." The transmission ended, leaving Mitchell to wonder what the Zephyrians were really planning. Were they trying to negotiate secretly with individual human colonies? Were they attempting to divide human leadership? Or were they simply desperate enough to try anything? His questions were answered 3 hours later when another transmission arrived from Earth. President Harper appeared on his screen, looking tired but determined. "Admiral Mitchell, I have just finished a very interesting conversation with Chancellor Korvax. It seems the Galactic Council is reconsidering their position regarding humanity." "What kind of reconsideration, Madam President?" "They want to meet. They are offering to discuss a new relationship between humanity and the galactic community. They claim they were hasty in their previous demands and want to find a better solution." Mitchell was skeptical. "Do you trust them?" Harper smiled grimly. "I trust them to act in their own self-interest. Right now, their self-interest requires human cooperation. The question is whether we want to give it to them." "What are your instructions?" "Continue monitoring the situation. I want to know how bad things get before we make any decisions about responding to their requests. The galaxy wanted to see what life was like without human interference. Let them experience it fully before we consider returning." Mitchell nodded in agreement. "How long do you think it will take?" "Dr. Foster estimates that food shortages will become critical within another 6 months. The Marauder clans are getting bolder every week. At their current rate of expansion, they will be threatening core worlds within a year. And then? Then we will see how proud the Galactic Council really is when their own homeworlds are under attack." The transmission ended, leaving Mitchell alone with his thoughts. Through his observation windows, he could see the lights of Earth shining in the distance. Humanity was safe, growing stronger, and learning to stand completely on its own. Meanwhile, the galaxy that had rejected them was slowly falling apart. The irony was not lost on him. In trying to control humanity, the aliens had revealed how much they needed human strength. Soon, they would have to choose between their pride and their survival. Mitchell had a feeling he knew which they would choose. 2 years after humanity left the Galactic Council, Captain Lisa Stone stood on the observation deck of Earth's primary orbital defense platform. Through the reinforced windows, she could see a small fleet of alien ships waiting at the edge of the Sol system. They had been there for 3 days requesting permission to approach Earth. Captain Stone, her communications officer, called out, "Admiral Mitchell is ready to speak with you." Stone walked to the secure communication terminal. Admiral Mitchell's face appeared on the screen, looking older but more confident than she remembered. "Captain, what is the status of our uninvited guests?" 5 ships total, sir. 3 Zephyrian, diplomatic vessels, 1 Altarian transport, and 1 ship I do not recognize. They are maintaining position exactly where we told them to stop. No aggressive movements, no attempts to scan our defenses. Good. President Harper has agreed to meet with them, but only under our terms. You are to escort 1 representative from each ship to Geneva. Full security protocols. Any sign of trouble and you send them home immediately. Stone nodded. Understood, sir. When do we begin? Transport departs in 6 hours. The president wants to get this over with quickly. The meeting took place in the same conference room where humanity had planned their withdrawal 2 years earlier. President Harper, now serving her 2nd term, sat at the head of the table. The alien delegation sat across from her, looking nothing, like the proud and confident beings who had once demanded human submission. Chancellor Korvax of the Zephyrians looked thin and tired. His forearms shook slightly as he placed a data pad on the table. The Altarian ambassador kept changing colors, his blue skin cycling through shades that indicated extreme stress. The 3rd delegate was from a species called the Keth, a race that had remained neutral during the original conflict. President Harper, Korvax began, his voice lacking its former authority. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. We know we have no right to ask for your time after what happened before. Harper studied the aliens carefully. Intelligence reports had told her about the chaos spreading through their territories, but seeing their desperation in person was different. You have 5 minutes to explain why you are here, she said simply. Korvax activated his data pad, and holographic displays filled the air above the table. The images showed destroyed cities, refugee camps, and battlefields. The Marauder clans had been busy during humanity's absence. Our civilizations are collapsing, the Altarian ambassador said, his skin now a deep purple that indicated fear. The Marauder clans control 40% of the galaxy. They grow stronger every day while we grow weaker. The Keith delegate spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft but clear. 23 species have been completely destroyed. Their homeworlds are now clan territories. Billions are dead. Harper felt a moment of sympathy, but she pushed it aside. Humanity had offered friendship and partnership. The galaxy had chosen conflict and control instead. That is unfortunate, Harper replied. But I fail to see how this concerns humanity. You made it very clear that our presence was unwelcome. Korvax leaned forward desperately. We were wrong. We admit it completely. We were afraid of human power and independence. We tried to control you because we could not control ourselves. We offer you everything, the Altarian added quickly. Full membership in a new galactic government, leadership positions for human representatives, access to all our remaining technology, complete trade agreements on any terms you want. Harper listened patiently as they made their desperate offers. Finally, she held up her hand for silence. Gentlemen, lady, you seem to misunderstand the situation. You are not offering us anything we need. You are asking us to save you from problems you created. The Keth delegate tried a different approach. President Harper, there are innocent people dying. Children, families, entire cultures being wiped out. Surely humanity has compassion for the suffering of others. Harper's expression softened slightly. We do have compassion. That is why we offered friendship and cooperation in the first place. But compassion does not mean we should fix every problem in the galaxy, especially when those problems exist because you rejected our help. She stood and walked to the window overlooking Lake Geneva. The aliens waited nervously for her to continue. 2 years ago, you gave us a choice: submit to your control or face isolation. We chose a third option. We left you to build the perfect galaxy you claim to want. But we need you, Korvax pleaded. The galaxy needs human strength and human courage. Harper turned back to face them. You needed us then too. You just could not see past your fear and prejudice to recognize it. She returned to her seat and looked directly at each alien delegate. Humanity will not return to the galactic community under the old system. We will not submit to councils that see us as threats to be controlled. We will not pay tribute to protection rackets disguised as security services. We will not pretend that your prejudices are our problem to solve. Fight. Room fell silent. The aliens looked defeated, as if their last hope had been crushed. Harper was not finished. However, we are not without mercy. We are willing to consider a new relationship based on genuine equality and mutual respect. The aliens looked up with renewed hope. Any species that wants to work with humanity as an equal partner is welcome to join us. We are building new colonies, beyond the traditional galactic boundaries. We are forming alliances based on shared values rather than forced compliance. We are creating a civilization where strength is used to protect the weak, not to control them. She gestured toward the data displaying the galactic situation. You are welcome to join us in this effort, but you will do so as partners, not as rulers or subjects. There will be no protection fees, no tribute payments, no demands for submission. There will also be no tolerance for the corruption and exploitation that characterize the old system. Korvax spoke carefully. What would be required of species wanting to join this new alliance? Simple things, Harper replied. End the use of slave labor. Stop funding pirate attacks. Treat all species with basic dignity and respect. Share knowledge, freely to benefit everyone. Use military force only for defense, never for conquest or intimidation. The Altarian ambassador looked worried. Those changes would require complete restructuring of our society. Yes, they would, Harper agreed. Change is hard, but the alternative is watching your civilization collapse while the marauder clans take over everything you once controlled. The meeting continued for 2 more hours as the aliens asked detailed questions about humanity's terms. When it was finished, they were given transport back to their ships with a simple message. They had 1 month to decide if they wanted to join humanity's new alliance or continue trying to save their failing system alone. As the alien ships departed the Sol system, Harper stood again at the conference room window. In the distance, she could see the lights of the orbital shipyards, where humanity was building the largest fleet in their history. Soon those ships would carry humans and their new allies to worlds beyond the reach of the old galactic order. Former Ambassador Karen Wright, now serving as humanity's first director of interspecies relations, joined Harper at the window. Kandumban, you think they will accept our terms? Wright asked. Harper smiled. Some will. The smart ones who realize that partnership is better than conquest. The others will continue fighting each other until there is nothing left to fight over. And then? Then, we will be there to help the survivors rebuild, if they are willing to learn from their mistakes. Wright nodded. In the 2 years since humanity left the galactic community, they had discovered something important. The galaxy was much larger than the small group of species that had tried to control it. There were hundreds of races that had been ignored, or oppressed by the old system. Many of them were eager to join an alliance based on equality rather than domination. As the stars shone down on Earth, humanity prepared for its next chapter among them. They had left the galaxy as refugees from an unjust system. They would return as leaders of a better one. The galaxy had finally learned what humanity's place really was, not as subjects to be controlled, but as partners in building something greater than any single species could achieve alone.